On the line now is Audacy NFL insider Ross Tucker. Insider calls are presented by BetQL. Download the free BetQL app right now and get instant access to the industry's most advanced suite of sports betting tools right at your fingertips. Evan Giddings in for Matt Steinmetz. Daryl the Guru Johnson as always. Ross, appreciate you hopping on with us, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing? You guys supposed to be doing better after yesterday, huh?
Look at Ross. I love you.
A little bit better. Look, we're all trying to figure out what's going on with the San Francisco 49ers as they're entering the bye week. And, one thing that we've kind of tossed around after the trade deadline is what was the reason for going out and getting Chase Young? It bolsters an already talented defensive line that hadn't necessarily the last couple of weeks been playing up to par. Why do you think the 49ers went out and got Chase Young, and how much does he help them?
Yeah, I think there's probably two main reasons why they got him, maybe three. Number one, the defense got torched 2 games in a row, right? I mean, Kirk Cousins without Justin Jefferson kind of lit him up. And then we saw what Joe Burrow and the Bengals did Sunday. So I think that they started to have some concerns about their defense, and maybe rightfully so. And I think, they keep trying to get somebody else opposite Bosa. They know they want to have waves of guys and depth, but they also felt like they needed somebody consistent opposite Bosa. And Chase Young's played really well this year. Those guys have a good relationship. So one is the way the defense has been playing the last couple games. Number two is to have somebody opposite Bosa, because you can't double both of them, right? So it's going to free up probably Chase Young for a bunch of one-on-ones. And then number three, I think they needed to try to change the mojo. I mean, they lost 3 in a row. They're going into the bye. I think they felt like they needed to change something up, give these guys a boost like a baseball team getting a new bat at the trade deadline, or getting another arm at the trade deadline. I think they felt like they needed to give the locker room a boost.
Man, good stuff, Ross. I was telling Evan and the listeners, because you played the game, you know what goes down, but we're taking calls. People are blaming Wilkes. If I even say he's got something to do with maybe Bosa not getting after the quarterback, they want to come after me. How much of this is just on Bosa or the players, even Hargrave? Like, this was supposed to be their strength, Ross, and I'm wondering how do you divvy it up to why Bosa doesn't look like Bosa of last year?
Yeah, so it's always a combination of both. We always, of course, want to pin it on one guy. Like, this is Wilkes' fault, or this is Bosa's fault. He got the money and now he's lazy or whatever. That's really never the case, right? It's always a combination of a couple different things. I think part of it doesn't seem like these quarterbacks are having to hold the ball as long, right? It feels like they're able to get rid of the ball faster. And I think some of that is coverage, both the players themselves and some of the coverages that Wilkes is calling. Obviously the all-out blitz at the end of the first half against the Vikings was just atrocious, like just absolutely atrocious play calling, game management, whatever you want to call it. And I think everybody recognizes that. But also, sacks in particular, okay, they're kind of, fluky is not the right word. But what I would tell you is pressures and quarterback hits are more indicative of how a guy is playing than sacks. There's some guys, it's like they'll have 15 pressures, but somehow they have 8 sacks. Other guys, they have like 38 pressures, but only 6 sacks, right? What I always like to say is disruption is production. If you're hitting the quarterback, if you're pressuring him, it's not as cool as a sack, it's not as impactful as a sack, but it still matters.
Ross Tucker joining us here on 95.7 The Game, Audacy's NFL Insider. Ross, with the addition of Chase Young, and I know you mentioned on your podcast that you didn't think that the Eagles should have gone out and gotten a Montez Sweat or a Chase Young, but with the 49ers adding a big piece to the opposite end of Nick Bosa, a guy that maybe they didn't play together because of Bosa's injury in college, but now they have familiarity with each other. They get that added boost that you're talking about. Would you put the 49ers defensive line in the same conversation as the Eagles, because they appear to be the standard bearer and have been for the last year plus?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First of all, I definitely would not have given up a second-round pick, a high second-round pick for Montez Sweat like the Bears did. That really doesn't make sense to me. Now, the Niners, it makes a little bit more sense because they have an extra, the extra comp picks in the third round, and because they kind of had a need in my mind. I don't think they felt like they were getting enough from Randy Gregory and Drake Jackson and Cleveland Farrell. So they felt like they needed one more guy there. I don't know that the Eagles feel that way, right? I mean, the Eagles, they're not even getting snaps yet for their first-round pick in Nolan Smith. I mean, right now it's Josh Sweat, it's Hassan Reddick, it's Brandon Graham, and then they're getting a few snaps for Derek Barnett and Nolan Smith. So I think that there was more of a need for the Niners, and they obviously had the extra picks as well. So I do think that the Niners are in the category. I mean, it felt like I haven't watched every snap of the Bengals game, but it felt like Hargrave was playing pretty darn good this year, at least when I was watching. So I think that they are up there with the Eagles. But, sometimes that can be hit or miss. I didn't think the Eagles' D-line was great against. In fact, the Eagles' D-line's two worst games, ironically, have both been against the Commanders, who are like the most. Sam Howell's been sacked more than anybody, and yet when he plays against the Eagles, that's like when their O-line plays the best. It's strange.
Ross, we'll get you out of here on this one because I couldn't let you go without asking. I'm a guy that said, oh, my God, the Brock Purdy, the movie, it's almost ready, and when's he going to make a mistake? And I know I'm emotional, but what have you made of the last three games? Because now we've seen turnovers at the end of games, and I was telling Evan, mainly over the middle. Just talk to us real quick about what you're seeing and how you compartmentalize his mistakes here late.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but these websites, these companies that track like turnover-worthy plays. There were a bunch even earlier in the year from Brock Purdy that were turnover-worthy throws or turnover-worthy plays.
Wow.
It was like he was lucky, and lucky's not the right word. He was fortunate to get away with them. Well, he's not getting away with them anymore. I think that's a big difference these last couple of games. And ironically, this was kind of the knock on Purdy coming out. This was the concern, is that he at times, had some crazy turnovers at Iowa State. It was not good. And so it'd be one thing if this was a fluke, but it's not necessarily a fluke because of what he did at Iowa State. Like, this is something that he's done.
Yeah, no doubt.
Wow, good stuff.
Ross, we appreciate you stopping by, and feel free. I know you got your podcast going. What are you working on this weekend?
Oh, man, I got a big weekend. Tomorrow night, I got Titans Steelers on Westwood One Radio with Kevin Kugler.
Let's go.
And then Saturday, Ohio State, number one team in the country, at Rutgers for CBS, noon on Saturday, 9 a.m. for you guys. So I got a heck of a doubleheader, boys.
Let's
awesome.
go, baby.
Well, we appreciate you fitting us in, Ross. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. See ya.
All right, that's Ross Tucker, Audacy NFL Insider. Insider calls are presented by BetQL. Download the free BetQL app right now to get instant access to the industry's most advanced suite of sports betting tools right at your fingertips.